What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted selves. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here.
And you know that I am so glad to be here with you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Catherine Duca, and you are listening to Who Do You Think You Are? If you're joining me for the very first time, let me tell you that this is a podcast devoted to helping you have the highest regard for yourself. It's a podcast that aims to help you live from a place of deep inner self-respect and self-love. And it's a podcast that tries to help you make yourself a priority in your own life. We meet here each week at this time for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we approach life from this place, inner love, inner respect, we naturally, without any effort whatsoever, give others permission to do the same. We have more room, more generosity, more patience, more bandwidth, more love for anyone who crosses our path. And isn't that what we need right about now? So I welcome you to this show, to this conversation, to this experience, and to this very sweet and growing community. Welcome, one and all. The title of tonight's show is Happiness Still a Thing? Is happiness still a thing? But before we get into that, I'm going to play and invite you to come along, play a little double dutch with topics. I have to say that I'm feeling nostalgic tonight. I'm feeling sentimental, and I'm feeling sad, actually. And of course, there are so many things going on in the world, so many intense things. But I'm sad today because an actor, one of my all-time favorite actors from childhood, Richard Chamberlain, passed today or yesterday. He lives in Hawaii. And I don't know if any of you listening ever experienced a real grief reaction to someone you've never met, to a television character. I know that I have. And today when I read the news about Richard Chamberlain's passing, he was 90, and his earthly cause of death, I believe, was a complication due to stroke. And I understand he would have been 91 tomorrow. And when I read the news, I tell you, I got pretty emotional. And that caused me, as I often do, to step back and kind of ask myself, where are some of these emotions coming from? And I gave it some thought, and I want to share these thoughts because actually I think it ties in to the topic tonight. Is happiness still a thing? But while I'm going through this, if you're in the chat, if you have access to it, let me know if you've ever experienced this or if it's just me. So Dr. Kildare was on the air in my childhood from, let me see if I get this straight, in the early 1960s, from 61 to 66. At the time, I was about 8 years old, 8 to 12 or 13. And he filmed 191 episodes. And I think I saw all 191. And if there were reruns, I watched those. And I found myself absolutely riveted to the storyline. And of course, I had an enormous crush on him. And when he was on Broadway, I was able to get tickets. A friend of mine went, and we had good seats. And then, of course, like every good fan, I waited out by the stage door and got his autograph and chatted with him for a minute. I told him that I felt that he was reading his lines or speaking his lines directly to me. And of course, ever so gracious, he said he was. And I'll never forget that. So what is it about Dr. Kildare? And of course, he played the lead in the miniseries, which was epic at that time. I don't know how many episodes, maybe 8 episodes, which was really unprecedented back then. The Thornbirds, which I have just indelibly printed on my mind. And he was in Shogun, and he won Golden Globe Awards for each of these performances. But what is it about that connection with Dr. Kildare and Richard Chamberlain that made me, frankly, a bit cryy today? Well, I think when we grow up with a character, they give us a lot of sentimentality. We feel like we know them. Of course, we don't. So there's probably some projection involved here. But I felt like I knew Dr. Kildare. And the storyline, the problems, the values that I thought he demonstrated at the time gave me a sense of belonging to something. I knew that I wasn't the only person watching, obviously. It made me feel part of a nostalgic collective. Some of the values that were portrayed on the show kind of influenced my own. And the predictability made me feel, in addition to, of course, larger things in my life, my family, but tuning in every week to that show gave me a sense of stability, okay, lowercase s, predictability, lowercase p, but nevertheless, something to plug into. There was an emotional connection there, a shared experience, a feeling of community. And in his passing, I find myself grieving what feels almost like a friend. Now, I looked this up today to see if I was the only one or if this was a thing. And it actually has a name. When we connect to someone we haven't met, it's called para something. It's called social relationships. Para-social relationships. So it actually has a term behind it. And I grieve for his youth and mine. You know, in a flash, I think he was on Thursday nights, and I would make sure I completed my homework and I plopped myself in front of the RCA television. We had just gotten a color TV, and it was the thing to do. Sometimes I had a TV dinner. Remember those TV dinners? So the TV dinner, Dr. Kildare, the RCA television, those simpler times really embodies a sliver of my youth. And today, saying goodbye to him brought up for me, of course, saying goodbye to that part of my life. I'll never be 12 again, of course. And so it brings up mortality. I see there are many people in the chat here. Let me just go over and see if I am the only one experiencing this or if some of you out there know what I'm talking about. Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Welcome. Yes, I also felt grief when you heard about Richard Chamberlain's passing. It made me reflect on many entertainers of my youth who are no longer here. an era gone by. Right, right. And what do you think it is about the era? I think it represents an era in my life as well, in those early days. Just Judy, welcome. Um, Judy doesn't, there are two words there, the in. I'm not quite sure what you mean, but welcome, Judy. Leandra, welcome, all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee. Welcome. Yes, it's happened to me too. Ah, yes, of course. When Robin Williams passed, it moved me deeply. Absolutely. Such widespread grief and disappointment and shock. And how could this be? Absolutely. Thank you, Leandra. Dawn, I think what we're grieving isn't only the person, but also our youth. Yeah, our innocence. That's the word. The meaning we give the characters. The shows and the characters like Dr. Kildare become markers in our lives. What a good word. Markers in our lives. Our innocence. I'm going to speak to that in a bit, Dawn. Thank you. Judy, yes, here we go. You're back. The in memoriam segments on award shows always deeply touches me. Isn't that the case? Something about the juxtaposition of everyone in the audience and then the actors and other people in the entertainment industry who played such a role in the pictures we love, the films we love, past. It's always deeply moving to me as well. Janine, welcome. The arts do that to us, give us that sense of connection to others and to ourselves. And certain artists, when they die, feels like a gut punch. Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. As a matter of fact, my partner, whom you all know by now, is Dawn. So Dawn was in another room. And do you do this too? If you live with somebody, do you text them from another room? Because we certainly do. And Dawn texted me and asked if I've seen the news this morning, if I read the news. And I knew what that meant. And I instantly said, who died? Who died? I felt a little like moonstruck when she got the call during the night and she sat up and who died? Anyway, that's where that question took me. And then I looked and I felt, as Janine is saying, a gut punch. Michelle, yes, the simplicity of the times brings up a different kind of grief for me we can never recapture again. Yes, Michelle, hold that thought, because that's exactly what I wrote about this morning in my newsletter and what I hope to be speaking about in a minute. So thank you for that. Joshua Rothman. Joshua, welcome. Welcome. Good to have you. I know it's not the same, but I lost a friend who was the same age as me. It made me consider my own age, mortality, and accomplishments. Yeah. There's nothing like when someone's passing hits close to home to bring up our own earthly mortality. Now the question is, when that arises, how do we meet that experience? How do we meet that experience? So in playing a little bit of this double Dutch tonight and our topic being happiness and is it still a thing? Someone asked me recently, we were having a conversation and she said, Kathy, are you happy? Are you happy? Simple question. And I was like, am I happy? Am I happy? I mean, I'm pretty, I think I'm happy. I don't know. And I kind of sputtered like that. And I wasn't really sure how I felt. I wasn't sure how to answer that question. It's a complicated question and I don't think it can be answered in a yes or no, but it got me thinking. And then I polled a few other people, some friends, some colleagues, family members, and I said, hey, would you say you're happy? Or how happy would you say you are? And they sounded a lot like me, kind of sputtering, couldn't really give a straight answer. And I began to wonder about that. I think in the Dr. Kildare days, I think in my youth, I would have answered unequivocally, yes, I'm happy. I was blessed with a good family, and I went to I was going to say a good school. But those of you who know my story know the mixed feeling with school. So I don't know what to say about that, but I felt in large measure that I was taken care of by the people in my life, and I could have said back then that I felt happy. But of course, as we get older, life becomes more complicated, and so I began to wonder: is our notion of happiness in 2025 outdated? Or do we need a new metric or new metrics by which to gauge our happiness? Because, as Michelle was saying, a time of innocence, a time of a certain carefreeness, I mean, that's what childhood should be about if things go well. And so, in thinking about conversations with many of my clients, I don't think a week goes by that one of my clients doesn't say, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And I invariably ask them, well, tell me what that entails. And oftentimes the answer is, it's a two-parter. One, I don't know. I don't know what I need to be happy. I don't know what it takes. And the follow-up is, often, I don't even know myself. I don't even know myself. I don't know what I want. So with this in the mix, it is more difficult to embrace a sense of happiness. Yet, how many of us chase it? How many of us think we should feel happy? Nearly all of us have bought into or buy into now the expectations that we've come to place on happiness. Most of us believe, we're convinced that certain adult achievements, like what? Like partnership, if not marriage, having money in the bank, good health, of course, kids, maybe a career, that if we achieve these things, we're bound to be happy because these are what we would regard as the tickets to happiness, right? Anybody ever say this to themselves? I'll be happy when I have these things. When I have the baby, when I say I do, when I have the house, when I move to the exotic location, all of these things. But I talk to people all the time who in fact have many, if not all of those things. And what do you think they say? In some form or another, I don't feel right. I feel hollow. I feel empty. I feel unfulfilled. I don't know why. I shouldn't. My life is great. But why do I feel this way? The other side of the coin is equally as interesting to me. And that's the question that says, or the belief that says, I'm afraid if certain things happen to me or happen in my life, I will be forever unhappy. In other words, for example, if I don't have the partnership, if I'm not coupled, if I don't have the child, if my money isn't what I want it to be, if I don't own a home, whatever it happens to be, we think that those things will render us in a forever state of unhappiness. So this is the level on which I think many of us, certainly myself, have approached this concept of happy. And when we find that we're not happy, I think I've done this and, spot it, got it. I see it in my clients. They tend to go down one of two rabbit holes. And one is They continue to chase whatever has eluded them, right? Um, well, I'll just step on the gas. I'll just try harder. And of course, the more that doesn't come, the more we chase. And, that sets up a whole energetic thing within ourselves. The other rabbit hole is we think that we're the only ones, right? We think perhaps this is not happening to anyone else. So we need a new definition or a new paradigm for pursuing happiness in this day and age. And I would like to present to you some of the thoughts I had. I can pull them up on my device, which always likes to turn itself off right when I have to go to that. They're different ways to not only language what I think might be a better pursuit of being glad to be alive, embracing being alive, but more meaningful. So I just want to run through them, and then we'll back up and go through them, and then I'll take your comments. I see I can't really keep up, but I want to talk about, instead of when I get these markers, someone used the word markers, instead of when I get this, or I'm afraid if I lose that, how about we go for things like establishing within ourselves what I would call a depth and breadth within. I'm going to elaborate these. We cultivate more emotional intelligence. We allow ourselves to be moved by things in life. Allow ourselves to be moved. We embrace impermanence. Embracing impermanence. We look for meaning and purpose in life, in situations, in events. We lean into the complexity and the ambiguity of life. These, I think, I try this in my life. These are sort of avenues or directions that I prefer to move in, rather than that kind of, feels less dimensional to me. I'll be happy if I get that. With me so far? Let me know if you're with me. All right. Depth and breadth. By being willing to be more contemplative, more introspective, more reflective, we can deepen not only our values, but our sense of who we are. Beneath superficiality, sound bites, quick remedies, we can better embrace different perspectives and become more three-dimensional individuals. So depth and breadth. Let me know how you feel about those terms, right? Moving on. Cultivate more emotional intelligence. Now, we hear that term all the time. What does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? And that's not you arrive at that any more than you arrive at intellectual intelligence. It's a deepening and an expanding and a more and more. So cultivating more emotional intelligence by being more empathic and compassionate, we're able to understand the feelings of ourselves and one another. We can see ourselves in other people. Who will disagree? There's so much othering these days. And what happens when we other? Well, we make the other person the other. There's separation, us versus them. There's a gap. We're not connected. There's, enter judgment, right? Enter all kinds of evaluation on the other person. So this interpersonal gap, I don't think it really serves anyone. So when we can see ourselves in others, I believe everyone is either some amplification of ourselves. They have a quality that we have, only perhaps much more intense, or they possess a quality that we have, maybe in a fraction of the degree to which we carry that quality. But if we can see ourselves in awe, okay, I know what that struggle is like. I know what grief is like. I know what setback is like. I know what failure is like. I'm less likely to judge someone who is finding their way through failure or setback or illness or what have you. So it's the willingness to wear a lens through which we see the similarities we share with one another. Less room for judgment. But of course, this goes without saying, who do we judge the most? Probably ourselves. Probably ourselves. And that comes in two forms: direct judgment, I'm a this or I'm a that, or the kind of backdoor judgment. We don't acknowledge what we don't like about ourselves, but what happens? We notice it in neon in other people. We take what we don't like in ourselves, what we judge about ourselves, what we try to disown within ourselves, and we throw it, project, onto other people. And though we don't like that quality in them, all the while, often being the last to know that we carry the gene for that very trait. Because that projection, you know this, you've heard me talk about this, and you know it anyway, that projection is a defense mechanism. It's the mind's way of trying to spare us the discomfort from owning that quality that we deem negative. And of course, you'll recognize this as our shadow. It's very important that we do shadow work. If we want to be a person of depth and breadth, we have to, we don't have to, we have the invitation to go deep with ourselves. Go deep with ourselves and within ourselves, and look in all the corners of our consciousness, the things we like, the things we don't like, and be honest with ourselves. That's a much better way to go. So embracing impermanence, I've talked about this too. Impermanence is one of the givens of life. There is no getting around it, not for any living thing. And by acknowledging and accepting this reality, what happens? We create a deeper appreciation of the present moment. We're not living too much in the past. By the way, living in the past is where a lot of depression lives, a lot of regret lives in the past. And when we live too far in the future, aka futurize, we can feel very anxious because the future holds an unlimited supply of what ifs. What if, and then what if that, and what if that, out and out to infinity. And you can't grapple with answers that are that far out. So impermanence, not an easy one for me, I have to say, but it's my practice to try to practice coming to terms with that. Looking for the meaning and purpose in life. It was Viktor Frankl who said, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist in a concentration camp, who said, what gives man meaning is the search for meaning. Looking for meaning in the things that happen in life. I guess even the unimaginable. And I don't have the answer to this. But again, endeavoring, being willing to search for meaning, I think is what makes certain things, tragedies, crises, traumas, more bearable. And when you put all these things together and we understand the connectivity between and among us, that's what helps us bear hard times. There's nothing worse than going through a hard time, I believe, than going through it alone. Nothing worse than going through it by ourselves. But when we can share the load, when we can open up to someone and let somebody know what's going on with us, ask for help, ask for support, ask for a listening ear, we can be helped to bear the weight of whatever we're experiencing. So putting this all together, and with Richard Chamberlain as the backdrop to this conversation, I think that the more adult version of childhood happiness is these things that I'm mentioning, is going in search of wonder and awe. I don't think that should ever stop, and I don't think we should ever stop being open to the childlike nature within. Of course, childish and childlike are two different things. Childish means we're kind of stuck back there. Childlike is we bring the gifts of childhood with us. We bring a certain, well, Michelle, you said innocence, a certain, I want to talk about awe. I don't know if it's a version of innocence, but when we look at nature, when we look at the vastness, when we look at things we can't explain in nature, the incredible, the magnificent, and we stand in awe of that, I think that's the adult version of childhood magic. And I don't know if I would say to that there's an innocence. You may feel, you may add to this, but I feel like there is a interesting, I'm going to use the word dwarfing that happens, but I think there's a better word for that, because when we stand before the Grand Canyon, for example, in all its vastness, we can feel insignificant, can't we? When we see images of outer space, we can feel like a speck, and we can feel the relative insignificance of that. But at the same time, I submit to you that the vastness of the universe and the vastness of the miraculous lives within each of us. As I've said before, and as many of you know if you listen to this station on any regular basis, each of us is the embodiment of the larger, of the divine. Each of us has within us the seeds of unlimited consciousness and expansion. And so we can be at once small and appreciate the vastness by virtue of our insignificance, and we can feel like we have all that within and be in our power. I just think that's extraordinary. And I think when I stop to remember that about myself, and I then, in the same moment, remember that in you, and I can say a silent namaste, the divine in me acknowledges and celebrates the divine in you, the highest good in me acknowledges the highest good in you, then we are one. We are one. And I know that people do all kinds of things in the world, and there is unbelievable cruelty going on right now, and unbelievable heartache thrust upon people. I am aware of that. And I believe that those are individuals who are just cut off from that which we're talking about tonight. So I don't know about you, but it helps me to hold those hearts in my consciousness as well, in the hopes that some light will break into their, what I have to believe are otherwise darkened hearts. So with that, I'm going to go back to the chat because I see that I missed some comments and questions. Okay, Michelle is saying, quote, "I want to be happy," unquote, is such a broad stroke. Yes, it is. And I think a couple of you said that in different ways. Let's all come together here. It finally became a journey for me, says Michelle, and not a destination, realizing that adaptation was important along the way. Adaptation along the way. Yeah. So often we set our sights on the end goal, and we approach it with an all or nothing. I arrived at my goal. I didn't arrive. If I didn't arrive, that means I have to be unhappy, because that metric turns out that way. I didn't succeed. And that starts to infiltrate our self-concept, how we view ourselves. And over time, we can start to see ourselves as a failure. And, I don't even know if the opposite is that much better, seeing ourselves as a success. I guess, relatively speaking, we'd rather see ourselves as a success than a failure. But I think these other metrics make more sense, because getting to a point that we can lose, achieving something that we can lose. If you're a model and you lose your looks, you age out of it. If you have a reversal of money, if you lose your title, so on and so forth. If you don't win the Oscar, whatever the case may be, you then fall off that, that you were teetering, I think. And, I think it can be a trap to say, well, all is well as long as things are going well. So I hope that these other ways we're discussing tonight give you a sense of they're more solid, they can be counted on more, they lend themselves more to inner security, right? Now, this is not to say we can't, because of course we can, have deep belly laughs, find humor in things, squeal practically with excitement. Excitement is a part of life. But I don't know that excitement is necessarily the same. I mean, yes, momentarily happy when we're excited, but the kind of happiness, or I'd rather say fulfillment, I prefer that word to happiness. Fulfillment comes from the depth and breadth of who we are, the depth and breadth of our experiences. So let's see what others of you have to say. Janine, most people I know would say happiness feels like stability and security, but also having excitement. Well, yes, there you go, which are kind of opposites. Happiness is in the balance between the two, maybe, between the balance of stability and security and excitement. Yeah, I might look at it as excitement is the weather and fulfillment more the climate, if you will, right? The weather changes. And I don't know about you, I love a good nor'easter. I love cloudy days. I love sleet. Not every day, but every so often, not even once in a while, every so often, I enjoy the variation. I enjoy the bright blue sky as well as the cloudy, foggy. And is that not true of life? There's excitement and there's disappointment. But the peaks and valleys are all a part of it. And I think if we're going to engage and participate in the richness of life, we have to be willing to adapt, as Michelle said, to know and to really accept that the fabric of life is made up of these fluctuations. So, Janine, that's a very interesting way to put it. But excitement definitely has a place in life. I mean, 1000%. So thank you for that. Still Bill. Where in the world is Still Bill? As you know, it took me many years to distinguish between having fun and being happy. Now that I have meaning and purpose in my life, I really am happy. Well, see, I think that's it. It took many years to distinguish between the two, fun and being happy. And now that I have meaning and purpose in my life, I'm really happy. That's the depth and the breadth, is it not? So thank you, Bill. You said it better than I said it. Thank you so much. Leandra, I've begun to believe that happiness is a choice. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm happy with me and my life for the most part. However, there are things in the world that I'm not happy about. Yeah. And not only are there peaks and valleys, we can be in the peak and in the valley at the same time, can't we? As I said before, unspeakable things are happening in the world, while at the same time, wondrous things are happening in the world. And I think I had a mentor one time who said, psychological growth, I'm paraphrasing, psychological growth is the ability to hold all the notes in the octave, the low and the high. And isn't that beautiful? Because what is a melody made of? What is a symphony made of? Right? It's a dance of low notes and high notes, and the combination of those is what makes the music. And so there are things in life that I'm not happy about either, and I would say I'm deeply unhappy about and deeply upset and disturbed by. And one of the things I do in my life is I try to always have a window open for looking for the wondrous. I saw a clip today, just briefly, of the earthquake in Myanmar. And it was a brief clip of I think it was a maternity unit in a hospital. And as the building was shaking, you saw the nursing staff protect the infants. And so it was, of course, a horrible thing, a frightening thing, terrifying thing. And you saw humanity and selflessness and the most giving thing a person can do, all in the same moment. And so I think we have a choice, Leandra, we have a choice to hold all the notes in the octave as best we can. There's no such thing as doing so perfectly, but grappling with, navigating, floating with, up and down, being knocked over by a wave of unhappiness, tragedy, and trying to get back up and perhaps bolster ourselves or, become buoyant by the love that is out there, as demonstrated by these nurses. So happiness is a choice. I always say an examined mind and a consciousness that is conscious is one where we have choice. We're not, I always say this, we're not the tail being wagged. We can choose where we place our attention. We can choose how we wish to perceive something. So that's a very powerful capacity that we have as humans, I feel. Leandra, thank you. Thank you for that. And Just Judy, kind of a couple of people bringing up the rear here. Over the years, I've lowered my sights on happiness. A glass of wine with friends, an hour at the ocean, a balanced walk can engender happiness for me. I can't really make out that word, a balanced something. But I get the point. Yeah, these micro moments of finding meaning. Dawn made me breakfast this morning. I feel obliged to share this with you. She made me and what do you think it was? Egg salad, everyone. And when she gave it to me on the plate and had the vegetables next to it, and I was not this kind of person. I really wasn't this kind of person, but I've become this kind of person. And I love this. I saw all the colors on the plate and I thought to myself, damn, Mother Nature. Wow. The unlimited bounty right in my plate. I saw abundance there. I saw a miracle on my plate. And I allowed myself, because I think our plates reflect so much of our inner lives. I allowed myself to take my time with that delicious tasting and delicious looking egg salad. And I savored it. And I savored Dawn's love as she made that for me. And I savored the, all the hands that went into touching it. And it was a moment of appreciation. So, choice. Okay. Dawn, I think they're two different, but perhaps related things. Awe is letting go of assumptions, and it's an openness to the mystery of everything. Good point. Awe is letting go of assumptions. Yeah. Do we know how those pyramids got there? Do we know how the Grand Canyon? Do we know the Seven Wonders? No, we don't. It's all mysterious. And it's being willing to avail ourselves of that kind of mystery that I can't even find the words to describe. Awe and wonder, always available to us. Look out the window, see a baby, see an infant go by. Look at the blades of grass. I say this all the time because it's ever present. Thank you, Dawn. Joshua, does depth and breadth mean to fully know and accept our true selves? Love the question, Joshua. Does depth and breadth mean to fully know and accept our true selves? I think it does. I think it does. Depth and breadth, to me, says taking the opportunity to look within. And even though we might occupy this much space in actual matter, our inner landscape, our mind, our consciousness, what we can behold and envision is limitless. Limitless. So depth and breadth is going in and feeling all the feelings about that. And willingness to open up and open our hearts and our minds and hold all those notes. So yes, it's going in search of who we are, going in search of self-awareness, being committed to cultivating our relationship with ourselves. So Joshua, yeah, in a pinch, I would say depth and breadth is to fully know, to be willing to fully know and accept our true selves, our true selves. By the way, if you're interested in reading some related material on our true selves, this sparked my memory, you may want to take a look at a certain book that I'm very fond of. You see it behind me. It's called Unmasked. Discover the hidden power of your true self. The hidden power of your true self. Hidden because it's in the depth and breadth. Power because it is our unlimited capacity. And true self because it's the self that is plugged in to the essence of the essence and plugged into source, connected to and embodying source. So if you'd like to read more, that book is available wherever books are sold. Local bookstores are great, and in a pinch on Amazon. And incidentally, before I go to Still Bill, who tells us he's in the middle of the Atlantic on a sailboat heading to Lisbon. Now, those of you who've been with us for a few weeks, we have seen Bill go to Hawaii, and now he's on his way to Lisbon. Terrific. In the middle of the Atlantic. You're here for technology. Oh, Bill, thanks for taking us with you. Patricia, welcome. Welcome. So good to see you here. Happiness for me always involves feeling I have purpose and meaning, but also enjoying the little things every day and real connections to people. Happiness. And the next one, happiness is being still Bill. Yeah. And all of it. All of it. You know, this level of engagement, this level of participation, this level of sharing really, really makes me happy. Thank you for showing me and the show and one another some love by commenting and asking questions. You honor me with this. I said last week, but the producer did not buy it. I'd like to do a 2-hour show, but alas, um, I don't think that's going to happen. So I am going to have to say goodbye in a couple of minutes. But I hope from our talk last week, I hope you went out into your lives with an added appreciation for your own self-care, not only for the obvious reasons that we talked about, but for the necessity um, regarding the other people in your life. We owe it to other people to take care of ourselves because we just have more to give, right? There's a saying, we give the best, not the best of us, not the rest of us. Right? So I hope last week's conversation allowed you to go out with that on your consciousness. And I hope this conversation allows and encourages all of us to be more mindful of the many ways in which we can find awe and wonder that can bring us sustainable, meaningful happiness. And I'll close with this. I think there's nothing more beautiful, really, than looking in someone's eyes, someone whom you know and someone you don't know. So I invite you this week, when you're checking out at the grocery store or you're at 7-Eleven or wherever you are in Lisbon, wherever you are, and you take your change or whatever, your credit card, I invite you to look the person in the eye for just a split moment and wish them something. Bless them. Something. Silently. But make that connection, because that's all part of the depth and breadth and humanity and connection. And I think we're going to find our happiness more there than in anything we can acquire. So, friends, self-love builders, wide receivers, thank you so much for this time, for sharing it with me. I wish you well. I wish you a good night's rest. Take all of this into your sleep. The problems will be there tomorrow. For tonight, just be good to yourselves. And let's hold one another in wonder and awe as the incredible human beings each of us is. Take good care. All my love to you. Have a great night. See you next week, where we'll have another interesting conversation on who do you think you are. You've been listening to New Thought Media Network. Good night.